Okay? Can I take it for just a minute? I'll give it back. In the time of King Herod, the rich were getting richer and the poor were getting poorer. In the time of King Herod, elders like Zechariah were trying to wrap their heads around the Judea that they knew as independent falling to the Roman Empire and Roman occupation. In the time of King Herod, not only was Zechariah an aging priest trying to keep faith in the face of a paranoid and cruel leader who held power through surveillance and brutality. In the time of King Herod, Zechariah was trying to keep faith in the face of infertility, a grief so private and a shame so public. Childlessness, known then as barrenness or the inability to conceive, was considered to be judgment from the divine by some. And though Zechariah and Elizabeth's story ultimately includes a pregnancy and a baby, even before that happens, Luke insists that they were righteous, worthy in God's sight. Their faith, their hope, it held on even through years of waiting, even through years of longing for something different, something better. Even as they started to get used to that emptiness, that longing, that hope unfulfilled. In the story we read today in Luke's gospel, a messenger of God, an angel, appears to Zechariah while he is serving in the inner sanctum of the temple, offering incense before God. And the image on the front of the bulletin today is a paper lace rendering of this. It's worth spending some time on. It's beautiful. You see the angel whispering and Zechariah kind of blocking his face in fear, and stars and birds. Kind of a manifestation of dreams hoped for, long hoped for, being whispered over him. Now, question for all of you. If you were just going about your business, doing the work you were called or paid to do, and a messenger from another realm, another dimension, let's just say from another planet, showed up and called you by name, how do you think you would respond? Luke tells us that Zechariah had a very reasonable response upon encountering this new layer of reality that he hadn't known existed before. Luke tells us that Zechariah was deeply disturbed and overcome by fear. The Greek verb that Luke uses, tarasso, has alternate definitions. It has a depth of meaning, like to be troubled, to be disturbed or agitated, this kind of like visceral stirring up. It's a kind of body and soul rattling that happens when your foundations have been shaken, when your core has been shaken, and you have to make room for totally unexpected or unprecedented information or experience. Reverend Dr. Boyoung Lee, in the commentary on this passage, notes that fear in this context is not failure. It is a natural human response to divine disruption. This fear is a reaction to the inbreaking of the divine. In the time of King Herod, Zechariah longed for God to break in, and God did. And that was terrifying. But there's another kind of fear that we have to watch out for. There's a different Greek word for this kind of fear too. Deliao, fear that takes root. Fear that becomes habitual, a daily way of being. Fear that makes us smaller than we are. Fear that makes us brittle. Fear that shrinks our hearts and our spirits and our imaginations. Fear that ossifies, inhibits action, and diminishes courage. That fear doesn't just visit like the angel, but it settles. And this is what the angel and anyone in the Gospels, Jesus included, who says, "Do not be afraid," is warning against. I think we all know people for whom fear has settled into a habit or a posture toward the world. And maybe there have been times when we have been those people. I've walked through those seasons. But the angel's message to Zechariah is ultimately one of hope. Do not be afraid, she says. Your prayer has been heard. What would your response be then, people of God, when the earthquake came with a message that your deepest longings were indeed known by God and had been heard? That message takes the moment when it appears that the world has collapsed and transforms that moment of collapse into a door, a portal into another version of the world in which a deeper knowledge of God exists, and where transformation and growth in the direction of your deepest longings can happen if you are courageous enough to answer the invitation in the affirmative and with hope. The birth of a child is such a portal. The world that existed before collapses and expands to accommodate a new life. Treatment for and recovery from cancer is another such portal. Somehow the journey through makes the idea of going back to the way things were anathema. A mental health crisis, the death of a parent, wrestling with addiction and getting clean and sober to build a life on the other side, the end of a relationship or the beginning of a new one. These are quite private and personal examples, but those are all the kinds of terrifying collapses that can also be a doorway into the new. And there are public ones as well. The death of George Floyd was such a portal for many who had previously been ignorant or oblivious to that particular form of oppressive violence experienced by the Black community in the US. The COVID-19 pandemic was another. I think the historic moment we're living through, though I'm not always sure exactly how to put it into words, would classify as another. Earth-shaking, fear-inducing, reality-bending experiences that become portals to transformation in the divine if we let them. Fearful and life-bending events that create portals into new dimensions of life in God. If we're willing to name the fear honestly and walk toward the revelation of the divine they offer. In her commentary on this text, Reverend Dr. Bo-Young Lee asked a number of questions that are worth sitting with. How does fear live in me? What voices has it amplified? What longings has it silenced? What are we afraid to hope for? What have we stopped praying for? Where has fear caused us to shrink back? I'm going to read that list again because I think it's worth letting it kind of simmer with all of us. How does fear live in me? What voices has it amplified? What longings has it silenced? What are we afraid to hope for? What have we stopped praying for? Where has fear caused us to shrink back? Of these 6, the 2 that most arrested me this weekend, yours may be different. The 2 that most arrested me were what longings has fear silenced? And what have we stopped praying for? When fear so permeates our inner lives that it silences and interrupts and censors our soulful communication with God, we are in trouble. That would be too much to ask for that. It's never going to happen anyway, so why even try? It's time to start getting realistic. The angel comes to Zechariah with the message that though the time of waiting may be long, though the fear may be valid, we need not do the work of the oppressor ourselves. We can continue to hope, continue to nurture our longings, and pray our most robust and outlandish prayers, trusting that God hears, God knows, and God is with us. And even if the miracle we are asking for doesn't happen on our watch, God feels our deepest aches and longings right along with us. And indeed, like Zechariah, fear doesn't disqualify us from answering the call of the divine. Fear marks the beginning of transformation if we will let it. In the time of King Herod, Zechariah longed for God to break in, and God did. And that was terrifying because it meant that everything could change. In the time of King Herod, we long for God to break in. May we walk with our better angels, being honest about what we fear, and having acknowledged it, lean into that vulnerability to let it enliven us with courage and hope, with a renewed sense that God is accompanying us on the way, listening to our prayers, enlivening our longings, aching with us to grow the courage to step forward into the new thing waiting even now to be born in us. May it be so. Amen.